Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched the massive mining drill bore into the rocky surface of Kepler 442b. The planet was nothing special to look at, just red dirt and gray rocks as far as the eye could see. But deep underground, it held treasures that made the long journey from Earth worth every credit spent. How much longer until we hit the main deposit? Jake called out to his mining foreman, Ben Carter, who was studying readings on his tablet. Maybe 2 more hours, Ben replied, not looking up from the screen. The scanners show a huge vein of titanium about 50 meters down. Should keep us busy for months. Jake nodded and walked toward the temporary buildings that made up their small mining camp. 23 people called this place home for now, all of them working hard to extract the rare metals that Earth needed for its growing fleet of starships. It was honest work, even if it meant living on a planet where the closest neighbor was 3 star systems away. The mining operation had been running smoothly for 6 months. Every day was the same routine. Wake up, check the equipment, dig deeper, and hope the weather held. The planet had fierce storms that could last for weeks, but today the sky was clear and the work was going well. Pete Johnson, one of the younger miners, was adjusting the drill settings when he suddenly stopped and pointed at the sky. Hey, what's that? Jake looked up and saw 3 dark shapes moving across the pale blue sky. At first he thought they might be clouds, but they were moving too fast and in too straight a line. As they got closer, he could see they were not natural at all. Those are ships, Ben said, his voice tight with worry. But they're not human ships. The 3 vessels were unlike anything Jake had ever seen. They looked like they were grown rather than built, with smooth curves and what appeared to be living tissue mixed with metal. They moved through the air without any visible engines, floating down toward the mining camp like giant predators. Everyone get to the communications building, Jake ordered. We need to contact Earth and let them know we have visitors. The miners dropped their tools and ran toward the largest building in the camp. Jake stayed behind with Ben and Pete, watching as the alien ships landed in a triangle formation around their camp. The vessels were bigger than they had looked from a distance, each one easily the size of a small Earth cruiser. For several minutes, nothing happened. The ships sat silent on the rocky ground while the humans waited inside their buildings. Jake tried to use the radio to contact Earth, but the alien ships were blocking all signals. They were completely cut off from the outside world. Then the ships opened. The aliens that emerged were tall and powerful, standing nearly 8 feet high. Their skin was dark blue and covered with what looked like natural armor plates. They had 4 arms, each ending in hands with sharp claws. Their heads were large and angular, with bright yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim sunlight. My God, Pete whispered. They look like they were made for fighting. The aliens moved with purpose, forming ranks in front of the human buildings. One of them, wearing more elaborate armor than the others, stepped forward and began to speak, in a language that sounded like rocks grinding together. Can anyone understand what they're saying? Jake asked. Ben was working with the Universal Translator, a device that was supposed to help humans communicate with alien species. It's trying to work, but their language is very different from anything in the database. Give me a few minutes. The alien leader continued speaking, making gestures with all 4 arms. Even without understanding the words, Jake could tell this was some kind of formal speech. The alien's voice was deep and commanding, like a general. Addressing his troops, finally the translator began to work. The alien's words came through in broken English. We challenge ... your warriors ... to honorable combat. Send your strongest ... to face ... our blade master. Jake looked at Ben and Pete. None of them were warriors. They were miners, engineers, and technicians. The heaviest weapon in their camp was a plasma cutter used for cutting through rock. I don't think they understand what we are, Ben said quietly. They think we're some kind of military unit. Jake stepped outside the building, keeping his hands visible and empty. We are not warriors, he called out. We are peaceful miners. We do not wish to fight. The alien leader listened to the translation, then made a sound that might have been Laughter, he spoke again, and the translator converted his words. All ... species have warriors. You ... Your champions. This ... is ... Dourtis. The other aliens began to spread out, moving toward the human buildings. Jake realized they were not going to take no for an answer. These aliens expected a fight, and they would have one whether the humans wanted it or not. Ben, get everyone to the emergency shelter, Jake ordered. Pete, come with me. We need to buy some time. The two men walked toward the alien leader, who stood waiting with what appeared to be a ceremonial weapon in his hands. The blade was curved and glowed with inner light, clearly designed for close combat. We ... champion, the alien said through the translator. Your ... strongest ... blade master, winner ... Jake was about to respond when Pete stepped forward. I'll do it, the young miner said. I'm not going to let these things hurt anyone. Before Jake could stop Pete walked toward the alien blade master. The creature raised its weapon, preparing to begin what it thought would be a traditional warrior's duel, but Pete Johnson was not a warrior. He was a miner from Ohio who had joined the operation to pay off his student loans. When the alien swung its glowing blade, Pete did what came naturally to him. He tried to run. The alien blade master caught him easily, lifting Pete off the ground. With one powerful arm, the young man struggled, but the creature was far too strong. With a single motion, the alien threw Pete to the ground. Where he lay still, Jake stared at his fallen friend, feeling anger build in his chest. These aliens had come to their peaceful camp, demanded a fight, and killed a good man who was only trying to protect his friends. You want a fight? Jake said, his voice growing loud. You'll get one. He turned and ran toward the mining equipment, shouting orders to his people. Everyone to defensive positions! Get the cutting tools. Use whatever you can find. The aliens heard the humans shouting and moving through their camp. They heard the sound of metal clashing against metal, the whine of power tools starting up, and something else. Something that made the alien warriors pause and look at each other with concern. From the human buildings came a sound unlike anything the aliens had heard before. It started low and grew louder, a deep roaring noise that seemed to come from multiple sources at once. The aliens had conquered many worlds and faced many species, but they had never heard anything like this. What ... creatures ... they ... Summon? The alien leader asked his warriors. The roaring grew louder, echoing off the rocky walls of the mining camp. The aliens raised their weapons, expecting to see great beasts emerge from the human buildings. Instead, they saw Jake Morrison step out from behind a piece of mining equipment, holding a plasma cutter like a weapon. He looked directly at the alien leader and said the words that would haunt the alien empire for years to come. Reload! The battle for Kepler 442b was about to begin. War leader Zethkar stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the human settlement through the viewing screen. 12 hours had passed since the first encounter, and nothing was going as planned. His warriors had expected a quick victory over these strange aliens, but the humans were proving to be unlike any species they had ever faced. War leader, we have lost 6 more warriors, reported his second-in-command, Vorthak. They fall to invisible attacks. We cannot see the enemy. Zethkar growled deep in his throat. His people had conquered 47 worlds, and every species they had met fought with honor. Warriors faced warriors in open combat. The strongest won, the weakest died, and the survivors joined the Empire. It was the way of the universe, but these humans did not follow the rules. Have the shadow beasts shown themselves yet? Zethkar asked. No, war leader. We hear their roars, but we cannot see them. Our warriors say the creatures attack from great distances, then disappear before we can strike back. Zethkar studied the human buildings below. The structures were simple and functional, not the great fortresses his people built. Yet somehow, the humans were winning. Every time his warriors advanced, they were met with precise attacks that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. The roaring sounds continued to echo from the human camp. deep, angry noises that seemed to come from massive beasts. The war leader had heard many creature sounds in his long military career, but these were different. These roars had intelligence behind them, as if the beasts were coordinating their attacks. Perhaps these humans are beastmasters, Vorthek suggested. Many species use trained creatures in battle. But what kind of creatures remain invisible? Zethkar replied. And why do they sound so strange? Down in the human camp, Jake Morrison crouched behind a pile of mining equipment, speaking quietly. Into his radio. Lisa, are you getting anything from their ship? Communications officer Lisa Price was hidden in the main building, working with every piece of equipment she could find. I'm picking up some of their transmissions, but the translation is still rough. They keep talking about shadow beasts and invisible creatures. They think we're using some kind of monsters against them, Jake said, almost laughing despite the situation. They don't understand that we're just using tactics. Well, whatever they think, it's working, said Ryan Davis, the camp's security chief. He was a former Marine who had joined the mining operation for the steady pay and quiet life. Now he was back to doing what he knew best, keeping people alive in a fight. Ryan had spent the last 12 hours turning the mining camp into a fortress. He used his military training to set up overlapping fields of fire, create hidden positions, and coordinate the miners into effective fighting units. The alien superior technology meant nothing if they couldn't hit what they couldn't see. Jake, we need to move to position 3, Ryan's voice came through the radio. They're trying to flank us from the east. Jake looked at the plasma cutter in his hands. It was designed for cutting through rock, but it worked just fine on alien armor. Roger that, moving now. He ran in a crouch toward the next position, staying low and using the mining equipment for cover. Behind him he could hear Ben Carter and the other miners moving to their assigned spots. They were not soldiers, but they were learning fast. The aliens watched from their positions, confused by what they were seeing. The humans moved in coordinated groups, but they did not charge forward like warriors. Instead, they seemed to flow around the battlefield like water, appearing where they were not expected and disappearing when the aliens tried to strike back. War leader, Vorthek said, the humans are not fighting like any species we have known. They use no honor, no single combat, no warrior's pride. Then they are not warriors, Zethkar replied. They are something else. The roaring sounds grew louder, and the war leader felt something he had never experienced before in battle: uncertainty. His warriors were brave and skilled, but they were trained to fight other warriors, not invisible beasts that struck from the shadows. Sir, another warrior reported, we intercepted more of their communications. They use strange words we do not understand. They speak of covering fire and suppressing attacks, and something called Overwatch. Zethkar did not know what these terms meant, but they sounded like the language of beastmasters giving commands to their creatures. Perhaps the humans were not warriors at all, but rather a species that had tamed the most dangerous predators of their world. In the human camp, Lisa Price was having more success with the alien communications. Jake, I'm getting clearer translations. Now, they're really confused about our tactics. They think we're summoning monsters. That's because they fight like knights from old Earth stories, Ryan said over the radio. Honor duels, single combat, formal challenges. They don't understand modern warfare. Jake fired his plasma cutter at an alien warrior who was trying to advance on their position. The beam caught the creature in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending him back to cover. Keep them thinking we have monsters. Fear is a weapon too. The battle continued through the day, with the aliens growing more frustrated and frightened with each passing hour. They had expected to face human warriors in honorable combat, but instead they were fighting an enemy that seemed to have no rules at all. War leader, Vorthek said, perhaps we should retreat and call for reinforcements. These humans and their shadow beasts are more dangerous than we thought. Zethkar considered this. His people had never retreated from a battle before, but they had also never faced an enemy like this. The humans fought with a cunning that was almost supernatural, and their invisible creatures were picking off his warriors one by one. No, he decided. We will bring more ships. If these humans wish to use their beasts against us, we will show them what real power looks like. As the alien ship prepared to leave for reinforcements, the humans in the camp continued their desperate defense. They had won the first day, but they knew more aliens would come, and next time, there would be many more of them. We need to get word to Earth, Jake said. Other colonies need to know what we're facing. Already working on it, Lisa replied. I'm sending everything we've learned about their tactics and technology. If they attack other worlds, at least our people will be ready. Ryan checked his equipment and looked at the tired faces of his fellow miners. Get some rest, everyone. Tomorrow we do this all over again. As night fell on Kepler 442b, the humans prepared for the battles to come. They had learned something important about their alien enemies. They were strong and advanced, but they were also predictable. The aliens expected honorable combat, and that expectation could be used against them. The roaring sounds continued through the night, echoing across the rocky landscape. The aliens in orbit listened to those sounds and felt fear growing in their hearts. They did not know that the roars were just human voices coordinating their defense, calling out positions and giving orders. To the Kethver warriors, the sounds were the voices of monsters. And soon they would learn that, in a way, they were right. The news of the strange humans spread through Kethver space like wildfire. War leader Zethkar's reports reached the high command within days, and the response was immediate. If these humans and their shadow beasts were so dangerous, then the Empire would test them on multiple worlds at once. 3 separate fleets launched toward human colonies. The first headed for New Montana, a farming world where humans raised cattle and grew crops. The second moved toward Haven's Rest, a mining colony similar to Kepler 442b. The third aimed for Proxima Station, a research outpost on the edge of human space. The Kethver commanders expected the same pattern everywhere: confused humans, strange tactics, and invisible creatures. What they found instead was something far more disturbing. On New Montana, rancher Sam Tucker was fixing a fence when the alien ships appeared in the sky. Sam had spent 30 years on the frontier, dealing with wild animals and harsh weather. He knew how to handle trouble when it came calling. Martha, get on the radio, he called to his wife. Tell everyone in the valley that we have visitors. And they don't look friendly. Within hours, every ranch and farm in the area had received the warning. The colonists were not soldiers, but they were hunters and farmers who knew how to use weapons. More importantly, they knew the land better than any invader ever could. When the Kethver warriors landed and issued their formal challenge for single combat, Sam stepped forward. But instead of accepting the duel, he did something the aliens had never seen before. Boys, these things want to fight, Sam called out to his neighbors. Let's give them one, though, remember. The ranchers scattered across the rolling hills, taking positions behind rocks and trees. They had hunting rifles designed for taking down the large predators that roamed New Montana. Against alien armor, the bullets were not very effective. But the tactics were perfect. What is this? Demanded the Kethver commander as his warriors came under fire from multiple directions. Where are their champions? Where are the honor duels? The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. A shot would come from one hill, and when they moved to attack, more shots would come from completely different directions. The humans were using the terrain like a weapon, and the Kethver had no idea how to respond. They have the shadow beasts here too, one warrior reported. Listen to their roars. The alien commander listened and heard the same sounds that had terrified the warriors on Kepler 442b, deep, angry roars that seemed to coordinate the attacks. But these roars were different, with a drawling accent that was distinctly human. Cover me, Bill, Sam Tucker shouted as he moved to a new position. I'm going around their flank. The aliens heard the roar and prepared for another invisible creature. Attack. They did not understand that Sam was simply talking to his neighbor, Bill Harrison, who was providing covering fire with his deer rifle on Haven's Rest. The situation was even more confusing for the Kethver. Former Army engineer Katie Williams had turned the mining colony into a fortress using nothing but mining equipment and human creativity. "We don't have military weapons," Katie explained to her fellow colonists. "But we have something better. We have mining gear, and we know how to use it." She had converted the mass drivers used for launching or containers into artillery pieces. The magnetic launchers could fire metal projectiles at incredible speeds, and Katie had programmed them to work together in coordinated barrages. When the aliens landed and demanded single combat, Katie gave them her answer through the mass drivers. The first salvo of metal slugs caught the Kethver completely by surprise. Their energy shields were designed to stop laser weapons, not solid projectiles moving at hypersonic speeds. "Impossible," the alien commander muttered as his warriors dove for cover. How do they coordinate their beast attacks so precisely? The aliens could hear the roars coming from the human positions, but they sounded mechanical and electronic. To the Kethver, it seemed like the humans had tamed mechanical beasts that could fire projectiles with perfect accuracy. "Target acquired," Katie called out over the radio. "Firing solution locked in." The mass drivers responded to her commands, sending another barrage of metal death toward the alien positions. The Kethver had never encountered anything like it. Their own weapons were designed for honorable combat between warriors, not for the systematic destruction of enemy positions. At Proxima Station, the third attack was failing just as badly. Commander Alex Rodriguez had been a naval officer before, joining the research mission, and he understood how to fight a superior enemy. "They have better technology and more firepower," he told his small team, "but they fight like amateurs. They announce their attacks, they always fight fair, and they retreat when they take casualties." Alex used every dirty trick in the book. He set up false positions to draw alien fire, then hit them from unexpected angles. He used the research station's communication array to jam alien signals and spread false information. Most importantly, he coordinated his people like a naval crew, with each person playing a specific role in the battle. "All stations, this is command," Alex's voice carried over the radio. "Execute Plan Delta. Repeat, execute Plan Delta." The Kethver intercepted the transmission and heard what sounded like another Beastmaster giving orders to his creatures. They had no idea that Alex was simply telling his people to implement a flanking maneuver they had practiced. "Fire for effect." Came another roar from the human positions. The aliens braced for another coordinated beast attack, not knowing that Alex was just telling his people to concentrate their fire on a specific target. The research station's industrial lasers, designed for cutting through asteroids, carved through alien armor like paper, back on the Kethver homeworld. The reports from all three battles painted a disturbing picture. The humans were not just lucky on one world. They were consistently defeating Kethver forces using tactics that made no sense. "They fight without honor," reported one commander. "They use terrain, they coordinate attacks, and they never face U.S. in single combat." "Their shadow beasts are everywhere," added another. "Some roar like wild animals, others sound like machines, but they all work together with perfect coordination." High Commander Vrechter studied the reports with growing concern. His people had built their empire on the assumption that all species followed the same basic rules of warfare. Warriors fought warriors, the strong defeated the weak, and honor decided the outcome, but humans did not follow these rules. They fought like a pack of predators, using cunning and coordination instead of individual strength. Worse, they seemed to enjoy the fighting as if war was something they had been doing for a very long time. "Perhaps," Vrechter said slowly, "we have misunderstood what these humans are. They are not warriors like us. They are something else entirely." The High Commander made a decision that would change everything. Instead of sending more small fleets to test human colonies, he would gather the greatest armada in Kethver history. If the humans wanted to fight with their shadow beasts and dishonor tactics, then the Empire would show them what real power looked like. But first, he needed to understand what they were truly facing. The reports spoke of creatures that could not be seen, of coordinated attacks that defied all logic, and of roars that seemed to control the very battlefield itself. What the Kethver did not know was that they were not fighting monsters at all. They were fighting humans being human, and that was far more dangerous than any creature they could imagine. on 3 different worlds. Human colonists continued their desperate defense, not knowing that they had just changed the course of galactic history. The roars that terrified alien warriors were just ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and the real battle was yet to come. High Commander Vrektor stood in the war room of the Kethver homeworld, staring at the tactical displays that showed their defeats across 3 human worlds. For the first time in the Empire's history, they had been forced to retreat from multiple battles against a single species. "Bring me xenobiologist Vorthlin," he ordered. "I need to understand what we are fighting." Vorthlin was the Empire's leading expert on alien species. She had studied the biology and behavior of dozens of conquered races, but the humans were unlike anything in her research files. "High Commander," she began, "I have analyzed all the communications we intercepted from the human worlds. What I have discovered is deeply disturbing." She activated a holographic display showing human communication patterns. "Listen to this. Recording from the world they call New Montana." The recording played, and Vrektor heard the familiar roaring sounds that had haunted his warriors. But Vorthlin had processed the audio differently, filtering out interference and correcting for translation errors. "Sam, take your group around the South Ridge," came a clear human voice. "Bill, when they move to follow Sam, hit them from the North Slope. Martha, start the diversion in 5 minutes." Vrektor stared at the display. That was not a beast roar. That was communication. "Correct," Vorthlin confirmed. The humans were not summoning shadow creatures. They were coordinating their own attacks. Every roar we heard was simply humans talking to each other. The High Commander felt something cold in his stomach. "Show me the other recordings." Vorthlin played intercepts from Haven's Rest and Proxima Station. In each case, what the Kethver had interpreted as Beastmaster commands were actually humans, working together with a level of coordination the Empire had never seen. "But how is this possible?" Vrektor demanded. "No species fights this way. Warriors face warriors in individual combat. This is the law of nature." "Not for humans," Vorthlin replied. She brought up another display, this one showing historical data she had gathered from human information networks. "I have been studying their past, High Commander. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years, and they have developed warfare into a science." The display showed battles from human history, ancient armies working in formation, naval fleets coordinating attacks across vast oceans, and air forces striking with precision timing. The images were disturbing to Kethver eyes, showing masses of warriors moving as one organism. "They call it combined arms warfare," Vorthlin explained. "Different types of fighters working together to achieve a single goal. They use terrain, deception, and coordination in ways that we never imagined possible." Vrektor studied a recording of human soldiers in training. They moved together like a school of fish, each individual aware of what every other was doing. This is not warfare. This is something else entirely. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Janet Stone was coordinating humanity's first unified response to the alien threat. The attacks on the 3 colonies had sent shockwaves through human space, but they had also provided valuable intelligence. "We now know they're not invincible," she told the assembled fleet commanders. "Their technology is superior, but their tactics are primitive. They fight like medieval knights while we fight like modern soldiers." Dr. Paul Harrison, Earth's leading expert on alien behavior, had spent weeks analyzing Kethver battle recordings. "They're constrained by their culture," he explained. "Everything they do follows strict honor codes. They announce attacks, fight fairly, and retreat when they take significant casualties." "Which means we can predict their behavior," Admiral Stone concluded. "If we can get them to fight on our terms instead of theirs, we can win this war." The human fleet was preparing for the inevitable counterattack, but they were also sharing tactical information with every human colony. The lessons learned from New Montana, Haven's Rest, and Proxima Station were being distributed across human space. Captain Scott Mitchell was leading one such training mission on a mining world called Titan's Gate. He had been on Kepler 442b during the first alien attack and had seen firsthand how effective human tactics could be against Kethver forces. Remember, he told the colonists, they expect single combat. They want warriors to face warriors in honorable duels. Don't give them what they want. The miners and engineers listened carefully as Scott explained how to use their industrial equipment as weapons, how to coordinate attacks, and most importantly, how to think like soldiers instead of heroes. When they land and challenge your strongest fighter, don't send one person, Scott continued. Send everyone. They can't adapt to tactics they don't understand. Back in Kethver space, Vorthlin was presenting her most disturbing findings to the High Command. She had discovered references to human conflicts that defied all logic. They have fought wars involving their entire populations, she reported. Not just warriors, but every member of their species. They call it total war. And it means they have no concept of limiting warfare to professional soldiers. The display showed images of human factories converted to weapon production, civilians training for combat, and entire planets dedicated to supporting military operations. To the Kethver who kept warfare separate from civilian life, it was a nightmare vision. Worse, Vorthlin continued. They have been fighting each other continuously for millennia. Every few years, some group of humans goes to war with another group. They have perfected warfare through constant practice. High Commander Vrektor felt the weight of this revelation. His people fought other species to expand their empire, but once a world was conquered, the fighting stopped. Humans seemed to fight simply because they could. Show me their largest conflicts, he ordered. The display filled with data about human world wars, civil wars, and regional conflicts. The numbers were staggering. In some wars, humans had lost millions of their own people and still continued fighting. In others, they had developed weapons capable of destroying entire planets. They are not warriors, Vrektor said slowly. They are something far worse. They are a species that has evolved specifically for war. The final piece of evidence came from intercepted human military communications. Vorthlin played a recording of human Marines discussing acceptable casualty rates for a planned operation. We can afford to lose 30% of the first wave, came a calm human voice. The second wave will complete the objective while the enemy is focused on the survivors. The Kethver command staff listened in horror. No honorable species would deliberately sacrifice their own warriors. Yet the humans discussed it like any other tactical consideration. They fight without honor, without mercy, and without limits, Vorthlin concluded. Every assumption we have made about warfare is wrong when applied to humans. Vrektor made his decision. Prepare the Grand Fleet. We will bring every ship, every warrior, every weapon we have. If we cannot defeat these humans through honorable combat, then we will overwhelm them with sheer force. But even as he gave the order, the High Commander felt doubt creeping into his mind. The humans had defeated smaller fleets using nothing but coordination and cunning. What would they do when faced with the full might of the Kethver Empire? On Earth, Admiral Stone received word that massive alien fleets were gathering for what appeared to be a final assault. She looked at the tactical displays showing human defensive preparations and smiled grimly. They still don't understand what they're fighting, she said to her staff. They think we're just another warrior species. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we really try. The stage was set for the final confrontation. The Kethver would bring honor, tradition, and overwhelming force. The humans would bring something far more dangerous. The accumulated wisdom of a species that had spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other efficiently, the roars that had terrified alien warriors across 3 worlds were about to become something much louder. The greatest fleet in Kethver history emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Over 3,000 ships formed a massive wall of metal and energy, stretching across space like a dark ocean. High Commander Vrektor stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the small blue world that had caused his empire so much trouble. Target the 3rd planet, he ordered. We will end this quickly and with overwhelming force. War leader Zeth Kar, now serving as tactical advisor, felt uneasy as he watched the human homeworld through the viewing screen. "Hi, Commander. The humans have had time to prepare. They know we are coming." "It does not matter," Richter replied. "We bring 3,000 ships against one world. No amount of cunning can overcome such odds." But as the HFY fleet moved deeper into the system, they discovered that the humans had indeed been busy. The space around Earth was filled with defensive platforms, weapon satellites, and clouds of metallic debris that interfered with alien sensors. Admiral Janet Stone watched the alien approach from Earth's orbital command station. She had spent months preparing for this moment, turning humanity's solar system into the largest fortress in human history. "All stations, this is command," she announced over the fleet communications. "The aliens are coming in exactly as predicted. They're staying in formation, they're moving slowly, and they're heading straight for Earth. Execute Operation Swarm." The first surprise came when the HFY fleet encountered the asteroid belt. What should have been empty space was filled with hidden human weapon platforms. Massive railguns emerged from hollowed-out asteroids, firing streams of metal projectiles at incredible speeds. "Impossible," Richter muttered as his outer ships came under attack. How did they militarize an entire asteroid field? The answer was simple human engineering. Mining ships had spent months converting asteroids into weapon platforms using the same technology they employed to extract metals from space rocks. Each asteroid had become a fortress, armed with the same mass drivers that Katie Williams had used on Haven's Rest. "All ships maintain formation," Richter ordered as his fleet pushed through the asteroid defenses. "We will accept losses too. Reach the main target." But the asteroids were only the beginning. As the HFY fleet approached Mars, they encountered something that defied all tactical logic. Human ships appeared from behind the planet, not in formation like proper warships, but scattered and moving in seemingly random patterns. "What is their strategy?" Sethkar asked, studying the human fleet movements. "They have no battle line. No coordinated formation. They move like insects." The human strategy became clear when the first HFY ships exploded. The scattered human vessels were not fighting individually. They were working together in small groups, concentrating their fire on single targets before moving to the next. It was the same pack-hunting tactics they had used on the colonies, but scaled up to fleet combat. "Target the largest human ship," Richter ordered. "Destroy their command vessel." But there was no single command ship. Admiral Stone was coordinating the entire battle from Earth orbit, while individual fleet commanders made tactical decisions based on the situation in their area. When the aliens destroyed one group of human ships, 3 more groups would attack from different directions. Captain Maria Santos led one such group, 5 destroyers working together against a massive HFY battleship. "Remember, we're not trying to win individual fights," she told her captains. "We're trying to win the war." Her ships moved in perfect coordination, each one covering the others while they fired at the alien vessel's weak points. When the HFY ship turned to face them, Maria's group scattered and another human squadron attacked from behind. "This is not warfare," Sethkar said, watching his ships fall one by one to the human pack tactics. "This is hunting." The HFY fought back with individual ship-to-ship combat, their warriors seeking honorable battles against worthy opponents. But the humans refused to give them what they wanted. Instead, they swarmed like angry insects, attacking in groups and retreating. When faced with superior force. As the battle moved closer to Earth, the humans revealed their final surprise. The planet itself had been turned into a weapon. Launch tubes on the surface fired swarms of missiles, while orbital platforms coordinated defensive fire that turned space around Earth into a killing field. "How do they coordinate so many weapons?" Richter demanded as his flagship shook under concentrated human fire. The answer was the same as it had always been. Humans working together, sharing information, and adapting to changing conditions. Every weapon platform, every ship, every missile battery was connected to the others through a communication network that let them fight as one massive organism. Admiral Stone watched the battle from her command center, coordinating thousands of weapons and hundreds of ships with the same ease that Jake Morrison had coordinated 20 miners on Kepler 442b. It was the same human nature, just on a larger scale. "All units, the alien flagship is damaged," she announced. "Execute final phase, close and board." The order that came next would have been unthinkable to any Kethver commander. Instead of destroying the alien flagship, the humans were going to capture it. Marine transports launched from Earth, racing toward the damaged Kethver vessel, while human fighters provided cover. War leader Zethkar stood on the bridge of the failing flagship, watching human boarding craft approach. Around him, his warriors prepared for the final battle, drawing their ceremonial weapons for what they believed would be an honorable last stand. "At least we will die as warriors," he told his men. But when the human marines cut through the hull and entered the ship, Zethkar heard something that brought all his nightmares rushing back. The sound that had haunted Kethver warriors across the galaxy, the roar that they had feared above all others. "Reload!" Marine Sergeant Tony Martinez shouted the word as his squad moved through the alien ship, just as Jake Morrison had shouted it months ago on a distant mining world. It was the same human coordination, the same tactical communication, the same species being exactly what they had always been, but now Zethkar understood. He had spent so long fearing the roars that he had never listened to what they really meant. The humans were not summoning monsters. They were not calling creatures from the shadows. They were just being human. The word reload was not a battle cry to terrible beasts. It was simply one human telling another human that he needed more ammunition. It was the sound of a species that had learned to work together so well that war itself had become their nature. As Zethkar surrendered his weapon to Sergeant Martinez, he finally understood what his people had been fighting. The Kethver had expected to face warriors like themselves, beings who fought for honor and glory and individual achievement. Instead, they had encountered something far more dangerous, a species that fought for survival, that worked together like a single organism, and that had spent 10,000 years learning to be very, very good at killing things that threatened them. The roars had never been monsters. They had been humans being human, and that was the most terrifying thing in the galaxy. Admiral Stone accepted the Kethver surrender from her command center, but she knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had won its first interstellar war, but they had also announced to the galaxy that they were not the peaceful explorers they appeared to be. They were pack hunters from a world that had produced nothing but apex predators, and they had just proven that the roars other species feared was simply the sound of humans working together. The galaxy would never be the same.